I was sitting in my truck outside my grandson's baseball game, about to head into the field, when my phone buzzed. It was Karen, my accountant of 15 years. The text was just 4 words. Call me right now. My heart stopped. Karen never texted. She barely used her cell phone for anything, except actual calls during business hours. It was Saturday afternoon. I dialed immediately, my hand shaking slightly as I gripped the phone. "Bob?" she answered, before the first ring even finished. "Are you alone? Can you talk?" "Yeah, I'm in my truck." "What's going on, Karen? You're scaring me. I need you to listen very carefully and not react until I'm finished." Her voice had that tight, controlled quality I'd heard once before, 20 years ago, when she'd discovered my former business partner was skimming. I was doing the quarterly review for Martinez Construction yesterday, getting ready for tax season. Something didn't look right with the payroll account. "What do you mean, didn't look right?" "Bob, there have been systematic withdrawals over the past 14 months. Always under $10,000. Always coded as equipment repair or subcontractor payments. But when I cross-reference them with your actual equipment maintenance records and your 1,099 seconds, none of these payments match up." I felt cold despite the Arizona heat baking through my windshield. "How much are we talking about? So far? $237,000. The number hit me like a sledgehammer. I couldn't breathe. $237,000 from my company. The company I'd built from nothing. Over 42 years. Who has access to that account? I already knew the answer, but I needed to hear her say it. "Besides you?" "Only Michael. He's been the operations manager for 3 years now. Michael. My son. My only child." "Karen, there has to be a mistake. Michael wouldn't. I've triple-checked everything, Bob. I've been up all night going through the records. The withdrawals started 2 months after you gave him signing authority. They're always just under the threshold that would trigger an automatic alert. Someone who knows what they're doing structured this very carefully. Through my truck window, I could see my grandson Tommy at bat. His little stance, just like Michael's had been at that age. Michael was supposed to be at this game too. He'd promised Tommy he'd be here, but he'd texted an hour ago saying Jennifer needed him for something at home. Jennifer. His wife of 5 years. What do I do? My voice sounded old, defeated. "First, don't confront him yet. We need documentation. I'm going to pull every record, every transaction. Second, I need you to check your personal accounts, your retirement, everything. If he has access to anything else. He's got power of attorney for medical decisions. After Elizabeth died, I set it up so someone could make calls if something happened to me. Michael's all I have. Medical POA is different from financial. Does he have financial power of attorney? No. I never did that paperwork. Thank God. But Bob, check everything anyway. And I'm recommending you talk to Frank Peterson, the lawyer. He specializes in this kind of thing. Family businesses, asset protection. I'm sending you his number right now." After we hung up, I sat in that truck for 20 minutes, watching Tommy's game without really seeing it. My phone felt like it weighed 100 pounds in my hand. I kept thinking about 3 years ago, when Michael had come to me with the proposal. "Dad, let me help run the business. You've been doing this alone since Mom died. You're almost 65. Let me take some of the load off." I'd been so grateful. After Elizabeth's death from cancer, the business had felt like too much some days. Michael had his MBA, had worked in project management. It seemed perfect. Father and son, building something together. I'd taught him everything. The construction business, from the ground up. I'd introduced him to every client, every supplier. I'd given him my trust. And now this. My phone buzzed again. A text from Michael. "Sorry, Dad. Can't make the game. Jennifer's mom is having a crisis. Tell Tommy I'll make it up to him." Jennifer's mom. That was the 3rd crisis this month. I opened my banking app with trembling fingers. Something I rarely did since Michael had convinced me to let him handle most of the business finances. You focus on the job sites, Dad. I've got the paperwork. The business account showed the balance I expected. But when I scrolled through the recent transactions, I saw exactly what Karen had described. Small withdrawals. All under 10,000. Equipment repair. Subcontractor fee. Material refund. All legitimate sounding. All signed by Michael. I clicked over to my personal savings account, the one I'd barely touched in 2 years. The balance made me blink. It was lower than I remembered. A lot lower. I started scrolling. There. 6 months ago. A transfer to the business account for $50,000. The memo said. Temporary loan. Dad's approval. I had never approved any loan. Then another, 2 months after that, $25,000. Cover payroll. Emergency. There had been no payroll emergency. I would have known. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. This couldn't be happening. Not Michael. Not my son. But it was. The evidence was right there in black and white. I got out of the truck and walked to the bleachers, forcing a smile when Tommy ran over after the game. Grandpa, did you see? I got a hit. I saw, buddy. That was great. I ruffled his hair, my heart breaking. How was I going to handle this? Tommy loved his father. They went fishing every weekend, worked on his school projects together. Michael was a good dad, but apparently, he was also stealing from me. That night, I met with Frank Peterson at his office. He was in his 50s, sharp-eyed, with the kind of calm demeanor that probably came from seeing every type of family disaster imaginable. Karen sent over the preliminary records, he said, gesturing for me to sit. I've reviewed them. Mr. Martinez, I have to ask you something, and I need you to think carefully before you answer. Is there any legitimate business reason for these transactions? Any verbal agreements you might have made with your son about bonuses, profit sharing, anything? No, nothing. The salary we agreed on is $65,000 a year. That's it. And the transfers from your personal account? I never authorized those. I didn't even know about them until today. Frank folded his hands on his desk. Then we're looking at embezzlement. Possibly wire fraud. These are felonies. Mr. Martinez, the word hit me hard. I need to understand something else, Frank continued. How did he access your personal account? I felt sick. About a year ago, he said the business banking system was updating, and he needed my login information to make sure everything transferred over smoothly. I gave him my username and password. I thought I was helping. Did you ever change that password? No. Frank made a note. Has he pressured you to make any other financial changes recently? Update your will. Sign over property. Anything? I thought back. Last month, he suggested I should add Jennifer's name to the deed of my house. Said it would make things easier for Tommy if something happened to me. I told him I'd think about it. Don't. Don't sign anything. Don't make any changes. In fact, I want you to change every password you have. Bank accounts, credit cards, email, everything. Tonight, you think he'd... Mr. Martinez, your son has stolen nearly $300,000 from you over 14 months. He's been systematic, careful, and escalating. The transfers from your personal account are more recent and larger. This pattern? It doesn't stop on its own. It accelerates. I felt like I might be sick. What do I do? First, we document everything. I'm going to work with Karen to build a complete financial picture. Second, we need to secure your assets. Remove his access to everything. Third, we decide how you want to handle this. You have options. What kind of options? You could confront him privately, demand restitution, cut him off from the business. Or you could file a police report and let the criminal justice system handle it. Or something in between. If I file a police report, he goes to jail. Possibly. Probably, given the amount and the duration. But, Mr. Martinez, if you don't report it, he could do this to someone else. Another employer. Another family member. And if he's willing to steal from his own father, what happens when you're older, more vulnerable? I couldn't answer that. I sat there, in Frank's office, staring at my hands. These were the hands that had changed Michael's diapers, taught him to throw a baseball, walked him down the aisle at his wedding. And now I had to decide whether to send him to prison. There's something else you should know, Frank said quietly. In cases like this, especially with family, there's usually a reason. Financial pressure, debt, addiction. Has Michael mentioned any money problems? No. He and Jennifer just bought a house in Scottsdale. 4,000 square feet, pool, the works. I thought business was going well enough to afford it. How much did that house cost? I think he said $750,000. Frank's expression darkened. Mr. Martinez, I'm going to ask you to do something difficult. I want you to go home, act normal, and don't confront Michael yet. Can you do that? I nodded, not trusting my voice. Good. Give me 3 days to build the case. Then we'll talk about next steps. The next 3 days were the longest of my life. I went to work, managed the job sites, smiled at the crews. At night, I changed all my passwords, moved money into new accounts Michael didn't know about, and stared at the ceiling, unable to sleep. Michael called twice, both times asking about minor business stuff. Could I approve a payment to a new supplier? Did I remember the budget for the Henderson project? Each time, I kept my voice steady and said, I'd look into it. I didn't tell him I knew. On the third day, Frank called me into his office again. Karen was there too, her face grim. It's worse than we thought, Frank said without preamble. The total is $342,000. That includes the business withdrawals, the personal account transfers, and something new we found. He slid a document across the desk. It was a lien against my house. What the hell is this? Michael took out a home equity line of credit on your property 6 months ago. He forged your signature on the application. He's drawn $115,000 so far. The room spun. That's not possible. I would have had to be there. Show ID. He used a notary service. A mobile one. According to the records, the notary came to your home and witnessed your signature. But Mr. Martinez, were you home on October 15th of last year? I checked my phone calendar. No. The notary was real, but they were paid to falsify the documents. We've already contacted them. They're cooperating with authorities. Authorities, the word hung in the air. Michael's also been using your contractor's license to bid on jobs under a separate LLC he set up, Karen added. Martinez Premier Construction. He's been underbidding your company and funneling the profits to himself. That's another $80,000 over the past year. I couldn't speak. This wasn't just stealing. I didn't even have words for what this was. There's more, Frank said gently. We looked into his finances. The Scottsdale house? Purchased for $825,000, but he only put down 3%. He's got car loans for 2 vehicles, a Tesla and a Range Rover, totaling $110,000. Credit card debt of $95,000. He's leveraged to the breaking point. Why? The question came out as a whisper. Why would he do this? Karen and Frank exchanged glances. Finally, Karen spoke. Bob, I think you need to look at Jennifer's social media. She pulled out her phone and showed me Jennifer's Instagram account. I'd never looked at it before. I didn't really understand Instagram, but now I was looking at pictures of my daughter-in-law's life. Exotic vacations, Cabo, Hawaii, Paris. Designer handbags with price tags still visible. A new Mercedes in the driveway. Photos at expensive restaurants. Bottles of wine that probably cost more than my weekly grocery bill. And the captions. Living my best life. You only get one chance at happiness. Success is the best revenge. She posts this publicly? I asked. 32,000 followers, Karen said. She's trying to be an influencer. The lifestyle blogger type. But Bob, these trips, these purchases, they're all in the timeline of the thefts. The Paris trip was 2 weeks after a $40,000 withdrawal from the business account. I felt something inside me break. It wasn't just Michael. It was both of them. They'd planned this together, stolen from me together, lived off my money while I worked 60-hour weeks to keep the business running. I want to file charges, I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded cold, hard, both of them. I want to file charges against both of them. Frank nodded slowly. That's your right. But Mr. Martinez, you need to understand what that means. Michael is your son, Tommy's father. This will blow up your family. They blew up my family when they stole from me. Fair enough. But there's something else to consider. In a civil case, you could potentially get a judgment, force them to pay it back over time. I don't want their money. I want them to face consequences. Frank leaned forward. I understand, and I support whatever decision you make, but I need you to be absolutely certain, because once we go down this road, there's no taking it back. I thought about Elizabeth. What would she want me to do? She'd always been the merciful one, the forgiver, but she'd also been the one who taught Michael right from wrong, who'd grounded him when he lied about his grades, who'd made him return the candy bar he'd stolen from the grocery store when he was 7. She would have been heartbroken, but she wouldn't have let this go. I'm certain, I said. File the charges, all of them. The next week moved fast. Frank worked with the district attorney's office. A forensic accountant went through every record. The mobile notary confirmed they'd been paid $5,000 in cash to falsify documents. The evidence was overwhelming. The police came to my house on a Tuesday morning to talk to me. I gave my statement, showed them everything. They were professional, sympathetic, but clear. This was serious fraud. Multiple felonies. And the DA was interested in prosecution. I still hadn't confronted Michael. Frank had advised me to wait until after the police investigation was underway. He might destroy evidence, Frank had warned. Let the professionals handle it. But I couldn't wait any longer. On Friday afternoon, I called Michael and asked him to meet me at the office. Just the two of us. He showed up 20 minutes late, looking relaxed in expensive jeans and a polo shirt I'd never seen before. Probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. Hey Dad, what's up? Jennifer and I have dinner reservations at 7, so I can't stay too long. I looked at my son. Really looked at him. When had he become this person? The expensive watch, the designer sunglasses, the way he held himself with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. I know, I said simply. His smile faltered. Know what? Everything. The withdrawals from the business account, the transfers from my personal savings, the fraudulent lien on my house, the shell company, all of it. The color drained from his face. For a moment, he looked like he might run. Then, something shifted in his expression. Defense mechanisms kicking in. Dad, I can explain. Can you? I stood up, my voice rising. Can you explain how you stole over $500,000 from me? Can you explain how you forged my signature? Can you explain how you looked me in the eye every single day while you were robbing me blind? It's not like that. Then what is it like, Michael? Tell me. Make me understand. He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I'd seen 1,000 times when he was nervous. We needed the money. Jennifer's used to a certain lifestyle, and my salary from the company wasn't enough. I was going to pay it back, I swear. The side business, Martinez Premier, that was bringing in good money. I just needed time. You forged documents. You committed fraud. You stole from your own father. I borrowed from the family business. It's going to be mine someday anyway, right? I was just accessing my inheritance early. The casualness of it, the entitlement, hit me like a physical blow. Your inheritance? Michael, you're not entitled to anything. I built this company. I've worked for 42 years to build it, and you've destroyed it in 14 months. I haven't destroyed anything. The business is fine. You're overreacting. The business is $500,000 in debt because of you. Do you understand that? I'm going to have to take out loans to cover what you stole. I might have to sell equipment, lay off workers, Men who have families, who've been loyal to me for years. For the first time, Michael looked uncertain. I didn't think. I mean, the accounts always had plenty of money, because I worked for it. Every dollar in those accounts was from jobs I bid, contracts I won, work I did. And you just helped yourself like it was a damn ATM. Dad, please, I'll pay it back. Jennifer and I will figure it out. Just don't do anything crazy. We can fix this as a family. We're not fixing anything. I've already filed a police report. The district attorney is reviewing the case. He stared at me like I'd slapped him. You called the police? You stole from me. You committed fraud. What did you think would happen? I thought my own father would have my back. I thought family meant something to you. I felt something crack open inside my chest. Family? You talked to me about family? This is Jennifer's fault, he said suddenly, desperately. She pushed me into this. The house, the cars, the lifestyle. She wanted to keep up with her friends. I just wanted to make her happy. Don't you dare blame your wife. You're a grown man. You made choices. You're responsible. He started crying then. My 42-year-old son, standing in my office, crying like a child. Dad, please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll do anything. Don't let them arrest me. Think about Tommy. He needs his father. And there it was. The weapon I knew he'd use eventually. My grandson. You should have thought about Tommy before you committed fraud, I said, my voice breaking despite myself. You should have thought about him when you were spending money on expensive dinners and designer clothes. You should have thought about what would happen to him when this all fell apart. He'll hate you, Michael said, his tone turning ugly. When he finds out you sent his father to jail, he'll never forgive you. Maybe. But at least he'll learn that actions have consequences. That stealing is wrong. That even if someone loves you, they won't enable you to destroy yourself. Michael wiped his face, his expression hardening. You're really going to do this? I already have. He turned to leave, then stopped at the door. Mom would be ashamed of you. The words were designed to hurt, and they did. But I knew the truth. No, I said quietly. She'd be ashamed of you. He left, and I sat alone in my office as the sun set over Phoenix. My phone rang 20 minutes later. It was Jennifer. How could you? She screamed, before I could even say hello. How could you do this to us? Michael is falling apart. We have a child. We have a life you built with my money. That money was always going to be Michael's. You're just a bitter old man who can't stand to see your son happy. I'm a father who taught his son not to steal. Apparently, some lessons didn't take. We'll fight this. We have a good lawyer. You'll never see Tommy again. I'll make sure of it. She hung up before I could respond. The arrest happened the following Tuesday. The police came to Michael's house early in the morning. I wasn't there, but I heard about it later from the detective who'd taken my statement. Michael had cooperated, hadn't resisted. Jennifer had called her lawyer immediately. The arraignment was surreal. I sat in the courtroom, watching my son stand before a judge in handcuffs. The charges were read. Multiple counts of theft, fraud, forgery. The bail was set at $75,000. Jennifer's parents posted it within hours. The case moved slowly after that. Lawyers, depositions, motions. Frank represented me in the civil case I'd filed to recover the assets. The criminal case was in the DA's hands. Michael and Jennifer hired expensive attorneys. They tried to argue that I'd given verbal permission for the withdrawals, that there'd been a misunderstanding about the business finances. But the evidence was too clear, too documented. The forged signatures on the home equity line were particularly damning. 8 months later, Michael took a plea deal. 7 years in federal prison for wire fraud and identity theft. He'd serve at least 5. Jennifer wasn't charged. They couldn't prove she'd known the money was stolen, though we all knew she had. Her Instagram went private immediately after the arrest. The day of Michael's sentencing, I sat in the courtroom and watched my son cry as he apologized to the judge. He'd lost weight, looked older. He turned to look at me before they took him away, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Regret. Real regret. I nodded once. Not forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But acknowledgement. I see you. I see what you've done. I see what it's cost you. Tommy was 13 now. He'd stopped speaking to me after the arrest. Jennifer had told him I'd sent his father to prison because I was mean and bitter. I'd tried to explain, but he wouldn't listen. Some wounds needed time. I sold the business. I couldn't keep it running, couldn't bear the memories. A competitor bought it for a fair price. I kept enough to retire comfortably, set up a trust for Tommy's college that Jennifer couldn't touch, and donated a significant amount to a foundation that helped victims of financial fraud. Frank helped me set up an irrevocable trust for the rest of my assets. No one could access it without multiple trustees approving. No one could manipulate me into changing it. I'd learned that lesson the hard way. On the 1-year anniversary of Michael's sentencing, I got a letter from him. It was 20 pages long, handwritten. He told me everything. How Jennifer had pressured him, yes, but how he'd made the choice. How the money had become like a drug, easy to take, impossible to stop. How he'd rationalized it every step of the way. How he'd destroyed everything that mattered for things that didn't. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He just wanted me to know he understood what he'd done. I wrote back. 1 page. I told him I loved him. I told him what he'd done was unforgivable. But that didn't mean I'd stop being his father. I told him to use his time in prison to become the man his mother had raised him to be. I told him that when he got out, if he wanted to rebuild a relationship, I'd be there. But it would be on my terms. No money, no gifts, no enabling, just the chance to prove he'd changed. He wrote back 2 weeks later. Just 3 words. I understand, Dad. It's been 3 years now. Michael will be eligible for parole next year. He's taken college courses in prison, gotten his general contractor's license. He writes to me every month. The letters are different now, humbler, more honest. Tommy started talking to me again last year. He's 16, old enough to understand nuance, to ask questions. We don't talk about Michael much, but when we do, I tell him the truth. Your father made terrible choices. He hurt people, but he's working to make it right. Jennifer divorced Michael 2 years into his sentence. She moved to California with Tommy. I visit when I can. I'm 71 now. I have enough money to live comfortably, good health, and a grandson who's starting to understand that life is complicated. That loving someone doesn't mean accepting their worst behavior. That justice and mercy can coexist. Would I do it again? File charges against my own son? Yes. Without hesitation. Because the alternative was watching him destroy himself, enabling his worst impulses, and teaching my grandson that family means letting people hurt you. I loved my son enough to let him face consequences. That's the hardest kind of love there is. And somewhere, I think Elizabeth would understand that.